From the Carl Chevrolet Studios in West Des Moines, welcome to Iowa Live. I am Lou, and it is that time to visit with a good friend of ours. We're talking about attorney Kim Baer. Hi, Kim. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you, Lou?
We're doing great, and we're going to talk about something that's very, very important and might be scary to some people when we're talking about things that have to do with your health.
Yes. I thought we'd talk about medical malpractice claims today. And I think a lot of times when you mention medical malpractice, people get a little defensive because they tend to like their doctor, they like their hospital, they like their physician's assistant. But I think it's important for people to know that approximately 251,000 people die each year due to medical mistakes.
Seriously?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yes, it's the third leading cause of death in the United States.
So who is, needs to be concerned about malpractice suits? Is it just doctors, like physicians, or who's all involved?
Really, it's any medical professional.
Okay.
So it can be a physician's assistant, it can be a dentist, it can be a pharmacist, it can be the hospital. I mean, sometimes the hospitals make mistakes when you're, in the hospital with regard to medication errors, things like that.
All right. Now, what has to happen in order for someone to file a claim successfully?
Yes. So what has to happen is there's really two things. So number one, you have to prove that the care provider, the medical person, did something wrong. In other words, they deviated from the standard of care. And what that means is, let's use an example as a doctor.
Okay.
Of a doctor. Did the doctor do something differently than what other doctors in that position would have done? So in other words, did they deviate from the standard of care that you should expect?
Okay.
Then you have to prove that that deviation actually caused an injury to you.
Okay.
And sometimes that's hard. We get a lot of calls at our office where people will say, oh my God, I almost died because this happened, but they didn't die and they're okay and it was scary, but so it's not a serious injury. So that's something else that we kind of look at.
So that really wouldn't apply in that case then, right?
Right. You could bring a claim, but these claims are expensive because one of the things that Iowa law requires is you have to hire your own doctor or your own nurse or your own hospital person to swear under oath that what they did was wrong. So it's expensive. So we have to hire experts. So typically most medical malpractice attorneys in Iowa only take cases with serious injuries.
Okay, let's talk about the standard of care. What are some of the errors that are made that you're familiar with?
Right. So things that I've seen, so I've been doing this for 33 years now. So some of the things I've seen is an operation where an instrument or a sponge was left inside the person. We see a lot of medical errors. When I say medical errors, prescription errors, medicine errors, where somebody is given way too much of some type of medication. We see some infection cases. I've had cases where they operated on the wrong leg or the wrong arm. So some things are obvious and some things aren't really that obvious, but basically it's when the doctor, the nurse, the hospital does something wrong.
Now, what about a failure of a diagnosis, maybe a wrong diagnosis? Does that ever come into play?
Absolutely, usually with cancer. And so in fact, we've got some of those cases we're working on right now. Either there was a delay in diagnosis or somebody didn't read the test correctly. I've had cases where somebody was told that they did have cancer, they went through surgery, and then it turned out later they didn't have cancer.
Really?
Yes. So there's, it kind of comes in all forms. We're humans and we make mistakes. And so the question is did that mistake harm you?
And that's one of the things you mentioned. You said you have to prove the fact that something that happened caused you damage or caused, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, a death in the family, right?
Yes, a death in the family or a serious injury. In Iowa, we do have caps. The cap is $250,000, but the cap doesn't apply if it was a death or if it was a serious injury.
Okay.
So
now, how long does somebody have to file a claim when you realize something has gone askew, something has gone wrong, and you want to file a malpractice claim? How long does somebody have?
Typically 2 years from the date you were injured. Now, there are some exceptions there. Maybe, so for example, let's say a sponge was left in you and you don't find out until 3 years later.
Okay.
So you still might have time to make that type of a claim. If it's a child, the statute of limitations might be extended. In medical malpractice cases, there is a definite limit. So about the longest I think we can go is probably 6 years.
Okay.
But in most cases, it's going to be 2 years. So if you find out that you have cancer and it was misdiagnosed, 2 months ago, your statute of limitations is probably going to run, around that time frame, and you're going to have 2 years.
Sound like a lot of questions that possibly need to be answered. If someone wants to get a hold of you to ask some of these questions, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, just give us a call either at 515-INJURED or the 279-2000. There's no charge for these types of consultations.
Okay, so you can just find out whether or not it is worth filing a claim for a malpractice suit. Well, thank you so much for your information as always, and don't go anywhere. We are going to be right back. This is Iowa Live.